Get it all
24 hours
on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Monrovia, 7 p.m. in Cotonou. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Mali and Cote d'Ivoire finalize border demarcation after days of discussions. Ghana seeks legislation to regulate electric charging stations amid complaints about local electricity infrastructure.
You would need permission to set up that EV charging station from the Energy Commission to reinforce the grid, install more transformers. We can accommodate your charging station.
In Guinea, shock grips the population as authorities discover 6 bodies in mass grave southeast of Conakry. US-Africa Future Summit calls for greater African agency to address key issues, including foreign dependency.
And the first was development finance. And of course, the transition from aid dependency to investments.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Augustine Bill Coley.
Thank you for being with us. Cote d'Ivoire and Mali have reached a major milestone in the process of demarcating their shared borders. Ivorian and Malian experts adopted the final borderline on Tuesday during a meeting in Bamako, paving the way for the signing of a border delimitation treaty before the end of 2026. The agreement was reached after 5 days of discussions by the two countries' Joint Technical Commission for Border Demarcation. Abdullahi Hassan completes the story.
The Joint Commission approved by consensus the borderline and a draft treaty that will formally establish it. The two delegations also adopted a technical framework that will guide future operations to mark the border on the ground. This latest development follows a technical reconnaissance mission carried out from April 12 to 19 in the border areas of Pogo in Cote d'Ivoire and Zegua in Mali. Ivorian delegation leader and executive secretary of the National Border Commission, Jackie Lydia Konate, described the agreement as a historic step, saying the border is now clearly defined and mutually accepted. The next stage will be the official signing of the delimitation treaty by the governments of Cote d'Ivoire and Mali, followed by technical operations to physically mark the border. Officials of the two countries say the agreement will improve border governance, strengthen cooperation among communities living along the frontier, and contribute to peace and stability in the border areas.
Abdullahi Hassan fight that report. In Benin, President Romuald Wadr has paid an unannounced visit to the military camp in Parakou, where troops deployed under Operation Mirador are carrying out security missions in the north of the country. During his visit on Tuesday, the head of state met directly with soldiers and military officers involved in the operation. The visit allowed President Wadr to assess firsthand the conditions in which the troops are operating, including their equipment, working conditions, and operational needs. Francis Boniface tells us more.
During the visit, military commanders briefed President Wadr on the progress of Operation Mirador, outlining the results achieved and the challenges encountered during security operations. Launched in January 2022, Operation Mirador is a key component of Benin's strategy to counter security threats in the northern part of the country. The operation focuses on monitoring the northern borders to prevent infiltration by armed groups, strengthening the deployment of intervention forces to protect national territory, and supporting local communities through civil-military initiatives. These initiatives include the construction of water and school infrastructure, as well as medical consultations aimed at strengthening relations between the security forces and local populations. President Wadanyi's direct engagement with the military troops comes as the government reaffirms its attention to the realities and needs of those deployed on the front lines.
Francis Boniface with those details. In Ghana, the growing electric vehicle market is coming under tighter regulations as the government moves to introduce legislation governing the establishment and operation of charging stations. This follows concerns that the rapid expansion of charging points, particularly fast chargers, is placing significant pressure on local electricity infrastructure. The Ministry of Energy and Green Transition says some communities are already experiencing transformer failures linked to the heavy power demand from EV charging, prompting the government to ensure that the electricity network is assessed and upgraded before new charging stations are connected. Elikplim Awuku reports.
The move comes as Ghana records a steady increase in the importation and use of electric vehicles, with motorists turning to EVs partly because of the potential savings on fuel costs. But the growing demand for charging infrastructure is creating new challenges for the electricity distribution network. The Ministry of Energy and Green Transition says the indiscriminate establishment of EV charging points is putting pressure on some electricity transformers, particularly in areas where the existing infrastructure was not designed to handle the additional load. Fast charging stations can draw significant amounts of electricity within a short period, with some capable of charging vehicles in about 5 to 15 minutes. Speaking at the Future of Energy Conference organized by the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP in Accra, Energy and Green Transition Minister Dr. John Abdullahi Jinapor announced plans to introduce legislation to regulate EV charging stations.
There's legislation before Parliament to regulate EV vehicle usage and how we charge them. People seeing that opportunity have started setting up EV charging stations. And with new technology, in 5 to 10 minutes, you are able to charge your EV vehicle. But that will consume a lot of electricity. And so what we witness is that people set up EV charging stations and immediately the transformer gets blown.
Under the proposed law, operators seeking to establish commercial EV charging stations must obtain approval from relevant authorities. Dr. Jinapor says the authorities will assess whether the electricity network in an area has sufficient capacity to accommodate a new charging station before it is allowed to operate.
You would need permission to set up that EV charging station from the Energy Commission. That gives us the opportunity to reinforce the grid, install more transformers, so that by the time you are ready, we can accommodate your charging station. Other than that, it will keep collapsing the transformers in that vicinity or locality.
The government maintains that the measure is intended to support Ghana's transition to electric mobility while preventing the rapid growth of charging infrastructure from compromising the reliability and stability of the national power distribution network. For WADR, Elikplim Awuku, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, in Senegal, reactions are pouring in after the Constitutional Council declared a bill seeking to regulate the use of special state funds inadmissible. Judges at the council ruled that the ordinary legislature does not have the authority to create an independent category of public funds or establish its legal framework. The council also found that several provisions, notably Articles 3 and 4, concern matters falling under the regulatory domain. These provisions cover the implementation procedures and accounting rules for special appropriations. However, analysts say this decision could have political and institutional implications for the regulatory powers between Parliament and the executive branch of government. Mamadou Cho, a Senegalese political analyst, reacts to the ruling.
This decision coming from the Constitutional Council made clear that the National Assembly has no right to look at these special funds. So, since the National Assembly is the only one who allowed the budget of the executive, how we go forward after this decision? Because if this political battle intensify around this issue, we can maybe see some big changes in the way, the executive and the legislative branch was trying to dialogue under the former regime. And as we are seeing since President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko part ways at the end of May, so everyone is at the head of a power for the president, the executive, and for the speaker, Ousmane Sonko, the legislative branch, and everyone want to show each other that he will use this power to gain what he can gain for the branch he's leading.
Mamadou Cho is a Senegalese political analyst. Meanwhile, the 4th U.S.-Africa Futures Summit has concluded in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with a strong focus on Africa's role in shaping a changing global order. African and international stakeholders discussed ways of strengthening the continent's economic and political agency. Key issues included moving beyond raw material extraction towards local beneficiary and industrial transformation while ensuring greater African ownership of the global energy transition supply chain. Conflict prevention and regional stability were also high on the agenda, with calls for stronger African-led mechanisms and greater regional ownership of conflict resolution efforts. Desiree Azugbavi, Africa advisor at the Open Society Foundation's OSF, one of the summit's co-conveners, was among those taking part in the discussions.
And the first was development finance. And of course, the transition from aid dependency to investment. How African countries should actually look more inward and develop domestic resource mobilization, for example. The second issue discussed here was around critical mineral. And of course, you agree with me that Africa possesses many of the resources that the entire world need now for many things, in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, and so on. How would the continent insist and work together to make sure that transformation happens in the continent and we gradually stop selling our raw material cheap? The third one was infrastructure. And when we talk about transformation of critical mineral, we need infrastructure. The other part of the discussion was about migration. Migrations, and I can add, all know Africa is the youngest population. And of course, we can't just be talking about the number of people. We need to check if those people, those young people, are well prepared to face the development challenges. For example, are they in good health? Are they well trained? Do they have skills to face the need of the continent? And the last thing we talk about here was peace and security. And this is the basic for anything else to happen. If we don't have a conducive environment, we won't be able to realize whatever we really want to work on for our continent.
Desiree Azugbavi is the Africa advisor at Open Society Foundation's OSF. We turn to Guinea, where the population is in shock after 6 bodies were discovered in a mass grave in the Fokaria prefecture, about 100 kilometers southeast of the capital, Conakry. The bodies were found Monday by young people collecting firewood in a forest near a village in the Alasoya sub-prefecture. Although their identities remain unknown, the victims, all men, were seen blindfolded with their hands bound. Local authorities and the public prosecutor visited the scene before the bodies were exhumed and taken to a hospital. According to authorities, an investigation has been opened to establish the circumstances and timing of the deaths, as well as identifying the victims. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Mali and Cote d'Ivoire finalize border demarcation after days of discussions. Ghana seeks legislation to regulate electric charging stations amid complaints about local electricity infrastructures. In Guinea, shock grips the population as authorities discover 6 bodies in mass graves southeast of Conakry. U.S.-Africa Future Summit calls for greater African agency to address key issues, including foreign dependency. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and the sports. Please stay with us.
But it will not work right. But the people that is educated, that is capable of working, will go. Those that will leave here will be in less number to do business and earn something good. But then now the market is choked.
Bringing you the facts beyond the headlines from Monrovia, Liberia. This is Abraham Parker. Stay tuned to WADR 94.9 FM Dakar.
Thank you for staying with us. Liberia's former Vice President, Joe Howard Taylor, is currently at the Monrovia Central Prison after making her first court appearance on charges linked to an alleged international cocaine trafficking network. The Monrovia City Court ordered her detention on Tuesday in connection with the $370 million drug case. Prosecutors allege that Howard Taylor maintains links with members of an international cocaine network and agreed to the use of Liberia as a transit point for cocaine trafficking to Europe. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
At the Monrovia City Court on Tuesday, the state lawyers alleged that Joel Howard Taylor met with members of the illicit drug network in Dubai and received payments totaling at least $135,000. The government says it has significant evidence, including travel records, audio recordings, and witness testimonies. But Madam Howard Taylor rejected the allegations. Meanwhile, some Liberians say the charges should now be tested in court, while others want the government to go further and establish who financed, facilitated, and protected the alleged drug network.
We all know statistic-wise, the government has lost all of the big cases brought against them, and this is one big case that they will lose again against the former vice president.
Even if former President Weah is caught, let him be investigated. If found guilty, let him go to prison for that.
Liberians no longer trust the security sector because even the entire police, they are all there involved with cocaine trade.
The former vice president of George Weah's administration is facing 9 offenses, including illicit trafficking, criminal conspiracy, criminal facilitation, money laundering, and the unlicensed importation and exploitation of controlled substances. Her lawyers have not commented on the latest decision. After her appearance in court, Joel Howard Taylor was taken to the Monrovia Central Prison, where she remains pending further legal proceedings. Political parties and other stakeholders are cautioning the judiciary against a politically selective investigation into cocaine allegations in Liberia. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Now to Niger, where supermarket owners have until December 31, 2026 to comply with a new ban on plastic bags. Authorities are urging businesses to prioritize environmentally friendly alternatives, including biodegradable bags, paper packaging, and reusable containers. From January 1, 2027, violators will face penalties under existing regulations. Imo Edit gives the details in this report.
Beginning January 2027, only biodegradable bags, paper packaging, or reusable containers will be accepted in the city of Niamey, replacing plastic bags. Authorities in the Nigerian capital say they want to protect the environment and combat plastic pollution. Boubacar Loget Zakari, a research professor at the Faculty of Agronomy of Abdul Mumuni University in Niamey, reacts to the decision.
For me, the decision to move towards the end of non-biodegradable plastic bags in Niamey is relevant, but its success will depend less on the introduction itself than on the ability to enforce the regulations and to support key industry players.
Nigerian environmentalists who welcome the government's measure are proposing sustainable alternatives to completely ban plastic bags nationwide. Sani Ayuba is the executive director of the NGO Young Volunteers for the Environment.
First, we must support local producers. We have women, young people, and artisans capable of making bags, baskets, and various types of packaging. Therefore, we must facilitate their access to financing, equipment, raw materials, and especially training. We must address the price, because if a plastic bag costs significantly less than a reusable bag, consumers will naturally continue to choose plastic bags. Therefore, the government can implement tax or financial incentives during a transition period for companies that produce environmentally friendly alternatives.
Nigerian environmental advocates are calling for the implementation of sustainable alternative solutions to enforce the ban on plastic bags.
Imo added with the details of a report filed by Yakuba Bibulai in Niamey.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Our guest this evening is Mamadou Chor, Senegalese political analyst. In this interview, he analyzes the political and institutional implications of the Constitutional Council's decision to block a parliamentary bill seeking to regulate the use of special state funds.
This decision coming from the Constitutional Council can be seen as the same council took a few weeks ago. This is the second time the executive branch, led by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, is bringing the case to the Constitutional Council, and the council is following the president's willingness. So it's a show that between the executive branch of power and the legislative branch around this biggest political battle of the moment, these special funds will, intensify. Because what Ousmane Sonko, the Speaker of the House, had made it clear that they should keep going on to voting laws to bring more transparency in how Senegalese taxpayers' money is being used, mostly by the president, surrounding these special funds. So that's why, even if we can consider it's a defeat for the National Assembly, we should expect in the coming days other laws in the same range.
What are the political or institutional implications of the Constitutional Council drawing a clear line between the Parliament's legislative powers and the executive's regulatory powers?
This decision coming from the Constitutional Council made clear that the National Assembly has no right to look at these special funds. So since the National Assembly is the only one who allowed the budget of the executive, how we go forward after this decision? Because if this political battle intensify around this issue, we can maybe see some big changes in the way, the executive and the legislative branch was trying to dialogue under the former regime. And as we are seeing since President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko part ways at the end of May, so everyone is at the head of a power for the president, the executive, and for the speaker, Ousmane Sonko, the legislative branch, and everyone want to show each other that he will use this power to gain what he can gain for the branch he's leading.
How do you think this will affect the Parliament's ability to legislate on the management of public funding?
Yeah, it's a big debate now. Because what we are seeing in all democracies, it is the National Assembly which is voting the budget, which allow the executive branch to do his job. If this Constitutional Council decided that the National Assembly for this kind of special fund has no right, what it does mean? We can be in a area coming from the National Assembly in the future. Telling the Constitutional Council that you told us in your decision that we have no right to do this. And for the maybe next year budget, the parliamentary session will start pondering on this budget in mid-October up to mid-December. So we can wait for some kind of surprises coming from this decision, because nobody knows what is lying ahead. And as we know, Usman Sonko is a politician, so he can use this decision maybe to try to have some trick for the executive branch of power led by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye.
Mamadou Cho is a Senegalese political analyst. And now in sports, the road to the CAF Beach Soccer Africa Cup of Nations Senegal 2026 has been mapped out following Tuesday's qualifying draw at CAF headquarters in Cairo, Egypt. 16 nations will compete for 7 places at the continental finals, while hosts and defending champions Senegal have already secured their spot in the 8-team tournament scheduled for the 7th to the 15th of November 2026. The qualifiers will be played over 2 home and away rounds. The first round ties will see Mauritius face Angola and Kenya take on Libya, with the opening leg scheduled for the 18th to the 20th of September and the return matches from the 25th to the 27th September. The winners will join 12 exempted teams in the second round. Key fixtures include Nigeria against Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire versus Mauritania, and Seychelles against Malawi. Tanzania will face Mozambique, while Burundi meet Uganda. The winner between Mauritius and Angola will face Egypt, while Morocco will meet the winner of Kenya and Libya. Second round first legs are scheduled for the 9th to the 11th of October, with the return matches from the 16th to the 18th. The 7 winners will join Senegal at the 2026 Beach Soccer Africa Cup of Nations. That's the latest in the world of sports. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Umu Dayogo for the technical assistance. To interact with us via our social media platforms, including X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Augustine Curley. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening